warm and cool colours together and seeing what happens. See how the blue now is coming into the shadow area. I haven't taken the umber off the brush at all. I've allowed it to stay there so that the transition is not as abrupt. The blue being introduced into the painting now becomes part of the form rather than separates it. So I'm working the shadow areas now, the part of the inner ear. I'll keep adding a little extra blue to intensify the dark or strengthen it. So I'm really, in my mind, I'm thinking about contrasts, the contrast of dark and light, and of course middle tones will come into that as well. Middle tone, of course, is probably halfway between a dark and a light. And very shortly, if I start feeling that I'm losing my form because the middle tone and the dark are very close together, and I need to introduce a highlight, I will. But I'm constantly watching. Now I've put a little bit of blue on the bottom of the nose. That would be the edge of the nose, which is more vertical, and we're looking at it end on. I'm bringing that down into the front of the mouth area too. And watch my brush strokes. You'll see that they follow the plane. In other words, the angle of the shape that I'm painting. And this helps to give you an understanding of form, and also helps the viewer to appreciate the form, the way the brush flows around the form. Now I'm going to put a little bit more of the darker colour on shortly, and I'm just looking at the overall form. Now here comes a little bit of titanium white. Now you notice I haven't cleaned the brush because the white is not coming off as white, but it's being affected by the colour that's all remaining on the brush. And that's the top of the... Notice I just did a little flick down there with the side of the brush, suggested the side of the nose. I'm going up to the forehead. I'm putting in some markings, and at the same time there'll be a little bit of highlight area. Still following the form. See the brush strokes and the bristle marks even suggest fur, just by their direction. And now I'm coming down the inner part. See, I tilt the brush on its side, on its narrow edge, and bring that down the side of the muzzle there, under the eye. And I'm building up form gradually, getting a feeling for it. Come down the other side, and when you do this, the areas that are not touched start to appear different as well. And this is how paintings develop. And I move around a painting. I don't stay in the one spot. I work around the whole subject and allow the subject to develop more evenly. That way I get a more complete look in the progress, and it's a lot easier to analyse the overall painting this way than if you just finish one area off at a time. I don't think the painting benefits from that. So I'm looking at it now, and you can see that the painting is progressing very nicely. I'm adding a little extra white here and there. And once again I use the brush on its side to establish a little bit more form. Now the light is falling on that area, that inner area, alongside the shadow. So I've got a hard edge there, a dark against the light, and also I'll come down the outer ear there. So we can see that the light's coming from the left side. And then remember that part where we lost our form there? Now I'm going to establish it. I'd say there's a little bit of reflected light, so I'd could come from one direction, hit a surface and bounce back. And that's the outer part of the ear on the other side. And I can soften the inner edge just by very gently, see how I'm controlling the pressure? I use the flat part of the brush, tilt it slightly, and very gently just touch in that inner edge. Now I've got two colours on the brush now, some orange and some yellow ochre. I'm going to introduce a little bit of colour, a little extra colour in now, and you'll notice that I didn't mix the colours. I'm letting them mix as I brush, and it makes the painting much more interesting. The colours aren't flat. See how they're coming off a little bit separately, and it's more exciting that way. It gives I think gives life to the work. And I'll tilt the brush on its side when I need to cut around a certain area, and I'm just bringing some of that colour in over on the edge of the ear as well. Bring it down the side, and I'm using all the brush when I need to. I can use the flat or the edge, or even a slight angle where I can go half and half. Up onto the temple there, and I'll put a little bit of colour in there, and of course the more I brush, the more those colours are going to mix together, and I'll get more of a burnt orange. But I'm not over brushing one particular area. That's important. Put the paint on, spread it out a little bit, and always look at your work. Watch the result. And if you keep brushing, here's a mistake a lot of people make. They put the paint on, they think, oh, that looks fantastic. What do? They keep brushing, and what happens then is the paint brushes together too much, becomes muddy, and they lose the effect that they've already achieved. It's gone. So it's a normal thing to do. I do it, and I've had to break myself out of it too. You put the paint on and you keep brushing because it's such an enjoyable thing to do, and the results are terrific. But you keep the brush moving around, follow the form, and play with colour. And remember, you can always wipe it off if you don't like it. You take a piece of cloth and just wipe off a bit that you're not happy with. Now I'm going to come down the bridge of the nose, and see how the composition lines are gradually disappearing and becoming part of the work. And that's the way I feel a painting should happen. I'm just tapping a little bit above the eye socket there, and you can see that now I've got to re-establish the angle. You can see one eye is a little higher than the other, and I've got to bring that eye down a little bit. So I'll bring the top of the eye down, I'll paint over it and just bring it down a little bit. Painting's all about changes and adjustments and so on, and the most important thing is to enjoy it, to have fun with it. And the more fun you have, it'll show on your work. Just doing a little bit on the top of the back of the nose there, and the paint is beginning to look very much like fur. And I'll be introducing other areas. There's a little part on the lower cheek there, and the body will come in very shortly as well. I can't just stay with the head and not allow the body to become part of the painting as well. And the outer area, we don't see much in the background at all, and those curves help part of the composition as well, because they block the eye off from going out of the painting. I'm just going to darken those two corners. While I've got the dark colour in the brush, I've added a bit more blue to the brush, and I'm going to, because the body of the dog is a very light grey, so I'm just darkening those corners out. And my brush strokes are very energetic. They're different angles. They don't You don't have to paint everything smooth and flat.